take the political temperature, let's head over to Westminster where we can talk to our very own MPs, Seema Malhotra and Nigel Evans, who have followed this story with us over recent months. The former Transport Minister, Nigel Evans, Joe Johnson, says this Brexit deal is a failure of British statecraft on a scale unseen since the Suez Crisis. Do you agree?
I think his analysis as to the negotiation is almost spot on, to be honest, but his solution to it is to have a second referendum, and that clearly isn't going to help anybody. I think the Prime Minister needed to be far stronger with the European Union than she currently has been. She seems to have conceded many points, the 39 billion, the transition and implementation period. She's now looking at a backstop. That is not what we should be looking at. The Chequers deal is not the Brexit that the people of the Ribble Valley voted for, nor the United Kingdom. And I do hope that when we see the final deal, because it's all going to be in the detail, that I do hope that Brexit means Brexit, to quote the Prime Minister, and she needs to get back to her Lancaster House speech and stop pivoting away and giving, basically, turning the United Kingdom into a vassal state. And I do have fears about that, that at the end of the day she will propose something. As you quite rightly say, she'd need to get it through Cabinet, and then she needs to get it through Parliament. Well, if the backstop is one of those things that means that we can't leave properly as a decision on our own, then quite frankly, that is something that will not get through Parliament. And it's about time her Cabinet started to tell her this, because I fear that there are far too many people who are keeping their mouths shut, and they should really be giving support to the Prime Minister so she could be more resolute with the European Union. She needs to be strong. She said she wanted to be an awkward woman. Well, she can be an awkward woman with the European Union, not with the 17.4 million people who voted to leave.
Well, I think Nigel, actually, he's about 2 years behind in what he's saying, because we've been through so many arguments, and the truth is that we are at judgment point, and it's a very serious point and a crossroads for us. Theresa May has just hit yet another Brexit Monday, starting the week in crisis, the potential of a deal imminent, then a rollback on that, then a delay in the summit, maybe until next month. I mean, this isn't the way to conduct negotiations as a country that's supposed to be sure of its own future. And the reason why she's struggling with her own cabinet, let alone the rest of her party, and why Parliament is now saying, well, look, if you're not going to sort this out and come back with a deal that's going to get through and be in the interest of our economy, not in the interest of your own party, then Parliament's going to take back some control. And that's what's now happening in this place. It isn't that Theresa May is starting to call the shots. People are genuinely worried about what's going to happen for businesses and families in their constituencies. We've had Dominic Raab, our Secretary of State, recently say an extraordinary admission that he didn't know how important the Dover-Calais crossing was for our economy. We've then had Joe Johnson, the minister, resigning, saying if we damage the speed of what goes through that crossing, then it could put food supplies and medicine supplies at risk. I've had a surgeon who has said as well that you could see operations be halted, because many of our operations require real-time, just-in-time delivery of medicines and equipment. So there's a lot at stake here.
Of course, Seema, we could stop it. We could stop it if there was a man on the Labour side who wanted a second vote. And Jeremy Corbyn says quite clearly that Brexit can't be stopped, although Keir Starmer, the shadow minister, says it can. So not really very clear on the Labour side either.
Actually, it is very clear on the Labour side, because we've got a motion and a policy that went through conference, and that's
your Labour leader doesn't agree with it.
Yeah, but that's been discussed again tonight, and I've heard Jeremy supporting that motion. I think the key point is this: that we've agreed as a party that if there isn't a deal that's going to meet the tests that will be supportive of our economy, make sure we get the benefits of access to the single market, make sure that we're in a customs arrangement that's on a permanent basis, not on a temporary basis that's at the will of any Prime Minister. That's not the way to be dealing with your closest neighbours, all the sensitive issues of Ireland, which should show, I think, a far greater maturity in politics than we're currently seeing from the Prime Minister and some members of her cabinet. But the issue is, if we don't get a deal and there isn't a general election, then what do we do then? And we may well need to go back to the people to close this off. It isn't just Gordon Brown who's also said that this week. Seema, but The alternative, I made this last point as well, because we know this is a place where people are looking for alternatives, and will there be an alternative that says we stay within the European Economic Area after we leave the transition period, a way of staying within the economic framework of the wider European family? Yes.
Seema and Nigel, some Americans that I talk to over here say quite simply, well, why can't you just have another referendum? Well, if you can't agree on any of this, why can't you?
Well, because the fact is that Seema said Parliament should take back control. The people took control in 2016 when they voted to leave the European Union.
It's quite simple. He's avoiding the question.
It's quite simple. All we need to do is to leave the European Union.
You don't need
a second vote.
He's avoiding the question. Whether there is a second vote or not, that's going to depend on whether we have a deal that gets through Parliament. If it doesn't, then the question is what that vote would also be on, and also why not go back if the circumstances
if it's not clear, we have best of three.
People have votes all the time. Look, we elect our governments every 5 years or less often than that.
Jeremy has said no to a second referendum. Emily Thornberry
hasn't said no to a second referendum.
That's what in Die Spiegel he was talking about. And also Emily Thornberry has said no. So
in the end, we want the answer that's not going to put...
What would it solve?
In the end, we don't want to put our economy at risk. And that is the big question now.
Okay, I'm playing referee here. I can see why this is so contentious. I really wish I'd never asked. Nigel, Seema, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.